The following podcast is a mass media production.
Hi, I'm Josh Galindo.
And I'm Krystal Galindo. Welcome to the Going Galindo Rugrats and Renovations podcast.
A lifestyle podcast where we will offer our experience and expertise in building real, lasting wealth through renovating and flipping homes.
And the chaos that comes with balancing a family of 6, leaving nothing unsaid.
Follow our wild ride we call life and apply our lessons to your own journey.
Okay, good morning. I am solo today. Well, I'm not solo today. I just don't have Josh today. But I am doing a podcast myself, kind of updating with my health journey. And I have a very special guest, and I don't know why I'm nervous for this one, but I am. So this guest is someone that is recently become near and dear to my heart, and I don't know how we'll ever not be friends.
No.
So first, her name is Ashleigh, and she is been guiding me and kind of been my mentor with my cancer journey. Anyways, Ashleigh, I'm so excited you're here. Introduce yourself and just give like a little tidbit.
Okay, at first, are you scared to look at me because you'll cry? Because that's same.
Yes, yeah. I was like, okay, look at the camera. I can't do it.
My name is Ashleigh. I am a wife and a mother of a crazy 2-year-old little boy. I'm a teacher, sometimes photographer, and as of late, a breast cancer survivor.
Yeah, thriver.
Yes. It's fine, I'm fine.
It's fine, everything's fine.
Hey guys, we're going to pause this episode really quick so that we can hear from our sponsors.
Okay, guys, I'm going to take a second to talk about one of our sponsors, Desert Radiology. I know from personal experience how important early detection really is. That's why I recommend Desert Radiology. They have been serving the community for over 55 years and have convenient locations all across the valley. Not only are they a trusted radiology partner of 12 area hospitals, but they are the official imaging partner for all of the Las Vegas sports teams, like the Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, Lights, Aviators, UNLV, and the Henderson Silver Knights. To learn more, visit their website at www.desertrad.com or make an appointment at 702-759-8600.
I want to take a minute to recognize one of our podcast sponsors, Battleborn Injury Lawyers. I had a chance to sit down with Matt Hoffman, and he really knows his law, especially for personal injury. He's committed to helping his clients, and he is the one personally meeting with you to make sure you get a fair settlement. Put his number in your phone in case you should ever need it. 702-570-9000. Again, that's 702-570-9000.
All right, so basically, if you're a new listener, I'll just do a quick recap. Back in January of 2021, when I thought it was going to be the best year of my life yet, 7 days in, I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And Ashleigh is one of the very first people I reached out to when I was terrified.
Yes.
And she had just gone through a lot of it and was still currently going through her journey. So there was a lot of guidance, support, and, she calmed my nerves, basically.
Well, it really sucked because we've talked about before, we ran in the same circle of friends and we know each other very well. So when you messaged me, I was like, oh, hey, Krystal's messaging me, all right.
I haven't talked to her in a minute.
Yeah. And then you were just thanking me for sharing my story and my journey. And you, mentioned to me, oh, I kind of have, a scare. And let me tell you, when I dropped to my knees and, thought all the good thoughts that I could, because that's not why I wanted us to be close.
Yeah.
It's not why I wanted us to be friends. And then the moment you text me and asked me for my phone number, I was like, oh, no. And then, we created this wonderful friendship now.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I can't imagine us never talking again. Because
right.
We are sisters for life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt, very, so not that this is about me, but I was really excited that I could be there for you, that you had somebody to like talk to, because I had people, but not anyone in my age bracket. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's been a lot of like what I've experienced. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, my mom or my grandma," and I'm like, no offense, but I'm 34. Like this, I can't. I need to relate to somebody that has young kids. I need to, because it's a whole different world when you're running around with small kids, or whether you have adult children. It's very different.
Yeah. And we'll get into it, but I got diagnosed when I was right a week before my 30th birthday, or right before my 31st birthday, I meant. So I am
younger.
Yeah. But still, like, we are in the same life cycle right now, and so I was just so happy that. I wasn't happy that I could be that person for you, or as you call me, a mentor, which I'm like, oh, girl, no. But I'm just so happy that we have each other, because as much as you say that you need me, I need you, if not even more, because it shows me that I need to, guide you properly, but also, like, show you that it's okay to, A, have breakdowns, or B, like, pick you up when you're falling down and tell you to get your ass up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I think that, when I first found out, for everybody, when I first found out in January, I reached out to Ashleigh and we went back and forth, and then you get all the information. Oh, you're HER2 negative and you're estrogen positive and all the confusing stuff that it's like when you're getting this from the doctors, it's very overwhelming. So it's good to have a support system or people that can guide you. Like I was asking you these questions, like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
What does this mean? Like, and I remember one of the first things you said to me was, don't let chemo scare you. And I was still like, no, I don't want chemo. I don't want chemo. And you're like, don't let it scare you. It's not that bad. And then so when they told me, like, okay, you do have to have chemo, I was like, tell me what to do.
Yes.
I don't know how to.
And I was like, girl, sit down. I'll tell you everything.
Yeah. So, and where I learned about the cold capping, which cold capping is a system that I use to save my hair. So chemo, when it goes like through your blood, it's killing all your rapidly producing cells, which is like your hair, your nails, your all that kind of stuff.
Which, can I tell you, when you and Josh talked about that on the podcast before, I was like, oh, I didn't know all that. I just did it because I was told to do it, like,
Really?
or offered to me. But I was like, wow, Josh is teaching me all these things about cold capping I didn't even know.
He's like the investigator. He always does all the research.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to Google it. It's going to tell me everything bad.
Yes.
So when I learned about the cold capping from you, it was that, it helps keep the chemo being in the blood going to your hair. Yeah. So it's supposed to save your hair. So that's why I have this full head of hair right now still.
And me
because
too.
You told me. I know, and you too. So I don't know. I'm hopping around a lot here, I know. So
well, first off, let's back up a little bit. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm a little I am halfway through my treatment.
And I'm glad you said halfway through, because I know technically you still have 12.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm like, no, you went over the big hump of the hard chemo, and now this is like the downslide of you're going to be done in the same amount of time it took you to do the first part.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you look at it as halfway done and not like another
like I still
mountain.
have, yeah. So I have total, I'm supposed to have 16 chemo treatments. My first 4, which I'm already completed with, were the harder drug treatments. So there's 4 treatments spread out 3 weeks apart, and that's over the course of 3 months. And then the second 3 months of my treatment is weekly treatments of another drug. So I am halfway through, and I start my weekly next week.
I was just going to ask you, how do you feel about that?
I'm not excited. And I honestly, it's all about the capping. It's the capping that gives me anxiety. It's the capping that makes me nervous, anxious, all that. But, with that being said, it's totally worth it because it's, 10 hours of misery to feel normal the rest of the time, you know?
100%. And that's what I was going to say. Like, even though during the process you're like, I hate this is the worst, it's really not that bad, like, when you look back on it. But it's because you're in that moment of where you're like, I really don't want to like rip this off. The sound of Velcro toward the end of the day would trigger me.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't want to hear that again. Yes, because there's all the bands and everything like that.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, as much as we're saying that's bad about the capping, I don't want to discourage anybody from doing it. I think that everybody should cap.
Yes.
And you know, that was another thing. Everybody that told me that I told I was going to cap, my doctors, my a couple other friends that went through it, they all told me, don't waste your time, don't waste your money. It doesn't fucking work. You know, like you're going to lose your hair. Be mentally prepared to be bald.
Yes.
Sit down, prepare your kids. And I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to tell my kids. There's never planned to tell them. And why wouldn't I just try, you know? And so even now, I went to my last treatment, and they were doing the capping and everything. But I went to my, you have to go to 3 appointments every single treatment. Yeah. So I went to my pre-treatment appointment, and the doctor was literally pulling at my hair because he's like, I can't believe that's your hair. I thought it was a wig. I can't believe it's working. Like the AC drugs make you bald for sure, 100% guarantee.
When you told me that, I was like, nope, you're doing it.
I know.
You have to do it.
You're like, no, you have to try.
Yes.
And I was like, does it really work?
Yes. And I mean, like you said, and it's not that it necessarily is hard, because we honestly had different experiences with capping. Like during the capping, I of course did not enjoy it, but it wasn't because the capping was hard for me. It was more because the moment I left the center, I still had those 5 added hours of having to do things. But I would never trade it for the world, because now, well, first off, because I am a teacher, they have no idea, my students had no idea I was going through this. My hair kept it so that they had no idea. As much as like it was hard in the moment, like you said, I'm just so shocked that not enough people know about it. I'm surprised it's not covered by insurance, because they help with wig costs, but this is like similar. So why wouldn't they help with this? And I'm just very thankful for cold capping.
Yeah, I know. So anyone listening, I mean, if you're going through this and you haven't started chemo yet, because one chemo treatment and it's already kind of too late, unfortunately. But do your research. It's called Penguin Cold Caps. Yes. That's what I used. You're Penguin too, right?
Yes.
Okay. Penguin Cold Caps, because I know there's another one. I think it's Dingy or
Digny Cap.
Digny Cap.
Dingy.
I hope they want to call it that.
No.
But yeah, Penguin Cold Caps, and it's like they send you the caps. There's 4 caps. It's a monthly thing.
Well, there's a ton of cold capping systems, and it just depends. And some hospitals or cancer centers have automatic ones where you like hook it up to a machine and you just do cold capping there. But from my research, I found that manual cold caps seem to have the best
Results.
Thank you.
I looked at I looked at pictures from both companies, and what's it?
Digny Cap. Like dignity.
Okay, thank you. That I did see pictures. The results weren't as good as they were with the Penguin Cold Caps.
But of course, do whatever like you can afford or have access to. But I do feel very blessed that we have access to Penguin.
Yeah, and I think the other thing was that I did a little bit of research on my own, just through Instagram, because I wasn't going to Google anything.
Yes.
And I did see that there's better results with the Penguin. But also, the other thing I was going to say with this whole health thing, nothing's in your control. Everything is out of your control. And I feel like the caps is like the one thing that you kind of have control over. And I didn't want to depend on plugging into a machine and just putting it on. It's like, no, I want somebody to put it on and get every single area of my head and try to control it, I guess.
And I think you and Josh brought this up before, but having cold capping during this pandemic made it so that we could have somebody in there with us, and that was life changing to not be alone in there. Not that it's a terrible place or anything, but it's just so nice to like have somebody with you.
Yeah. So when COVID happened, they made it so that you can't have somebody go into chemo with you, and I don't know for anyone listening, like it's a very lonely feeling
Yeah.
in that room, and it's very sad, and
especially being young.
Right.
Because, it's a lot of people that might be getting like iron infusions or IVs and they're a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
And then I prance in and I'm like,
in your
cool.
Lululemon outfit.
Yes. And I'm like,
I know. Someone had told me, no, it's okay. Don't be scared. Like, once you go in the room, you'll make so many friends. And I'm like, first of all, not to be rude, but I'm not going there to make friends. Yeah. And second, like, I'm half of everybody's age. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't, it's not, you don't really relate the same.
Yes.
So, but yeah, so the cold caps, I was able to have, my husband in there with me, Josh, and he's doing it too for me. But then also my sister, she's a dental hygienist, but she wears scrubs.
That's so nice.
So she came in her scrubs, and everybody thought it was my personal nurse that I hired.
They're
and
like, here's this bougie.
Yeah, because of masks, you couldn't see her face because we look a lot alike. But because of masks, you could only see her eyes, and they just thought it was a personal nurse that I hired.
They're
I'm like,
okay.
So I had 2 people in there with me doing my caps.
I'm a little bit jealous.
I know,
that.
right? Sorry.
Max like sitting next to me on the cooler, like,
yeah,
like, hey,
because I won't give you a chair.
Yeah,
I know.
Which is all not relative.
If you or someone you know is looking for their next luxury vehicle, you need to go check out Karma of Las Vegas with Tobin Motor Cars. Powered by electricity, Karma delivers a combination of intelligent performance, industry-leading digital architecture, and a connected vehicle technology experience for an unparalleled driving experience. I would know because I own one. From the moment you set foot on the dealership floor, you will enjoy white glove service. The luxury store on West Sahara is women-owned and has been supporting Southern Nevada for over 30 years. To learn more, visit TobinMotorCars.com. Again, that's TobinMotorCars.com or call 702-932-7100.
How have you felt like on the AC? Like what were your like side effects the last 3 times? Because I know the first time I was totally great. The second time I was pretty good too.
Yeah. The third time was a little bit harder. I think it was more emotionally taxing and mentally taxing. And I think we talked about this, that the biggest thing is mindset. And it's really hard to maintain a positive mindset. Yes. And I know, like, on social media or whatever it is, everybody's like, oh, you're so positive, and oh, you have such a good outlook. And I'm like, yeah, like 80% of the time, but the 20% of the time I'm having a mental breakdown, and I'm like, Ashleigh, is it okay that I'm pissed at the world today? Yes. Because I am, and no one understands.
I know. And it really is like that. Like a side note of what kind of kept me on like the positive side of this all was right at the beginning. I was searching on Instagram for like anybody that had breast cancer that might be like I can relate to, you know. And I found someone, and her name is Tia B. Stokes, and she does not have breast cancer. She had a different type of cancer, but her mantra the whole time was like, you can have happy cancer, you can have sad cancer. You have to get through the treatment. You have to get through all of those things, whether you're happy or sad. So I chose from the beginning happy cancer, and to remind myself every day that I'm like grateful to be here, and this fucking sucks, but you have to move through it. You have to wake up every day and move through the motions. And even when you don't feel like it, you have to have happy cancer. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like some days, and even when you do feel like sad, and I know I've told you this before, like that's okay, but you have to move through it. Feel your feels, feel yourself being sad, reach out to somebody, and then move on from it, because otherwise you're just going to be sitting there. I heard this one thing one time, and I wish for the life of me I could remember where I heard it. And it was basically saying, you have to tell yourself, this is just what I'm doing right now. If you're up late breastfeeding a baby and you're crying, this is just what I'm doing right now. You're stuck in traffic and you're pissed off because you're late. This is just what I'm doing right now, and I can't control those outer things, but I can control how like I'm feeling. So when I was in bed on day 3 after chemo, my back and my hips were aching. That sounds like that song. I would just tell myself, this is just what I'm doing right now. And I know on Monday, I'm going to be okay. And I just have to get through the weekend. I just have to get through today. I just have to get through the next hour. And that's truly just what I kept telling myself. And that's just like my piece of advice is like, you can have happy cancer or sad cancer, and you have to choose happy. Otherwise, you're going to dwell in all those pity moments, and you don't want that. Like,
Right.
Especially when you have 3 weeks between your treatment. Like, you want to spend that whole 12 weeks like upset and sad? No, that's why we kept our hair, so we can feel like normal.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? For us.
No, I agree with you. I think that it's hard because, you know, for me, I was thinking at the beginning, I'm like, okay, this is literally the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like, how did this fucking happen? Why did this happen? Like, is this my bad karma? Like, did I do something to deserve this? And then I'm like, why am I thinking all of these things? Because I'm never going to figure that out. I'm never going to know why. I'm never going to know, like, the reasoning behind it. So then instead of, like, sitting there trying to, which are all negative, I was like, I need to find the positive. I need to find the positive why. I need to, and if I can't find it, I need to, like, make there a reason why. And make sure that this little part of my life isn't, like, for no good, you know? So finding all the positive in it is very, very important.
On my last chemo, you sent me flowers, and you told me on the card, and this was right before you announced that you said, like, I hope I'm half as strong as you are. And I think you've surpassed, like, how strong I am. You really are. You really have, Krystal. You have shown everybody that you can be strong and you can fight through these things and you can do all this hard shit and still run a business and still have 4 kids. And let me tell you, those 4 kids have no idea something is going on because of you and how strong you are. Like, Josh can do whatever, but it's because of you. And, like, that, you need to know that one day when they find out, they're going to look back and Beckham's going to be like, what? No. And you're going to tell him, and he's just going to be so proud of you. You know what I mean? As well as your girls. And I know you have the BRCA gene, and you were positive for the BRCA2, right? Yep. And so I know I don't like the saying that, like, everything happens for a reason. Just like you were saying, like, you were trying to look like, why did this happen to me? There's not a reason why this happened to you. But with you having this, you just saved so many people's lives. And I know you probably are like, I don't want to fucking look at it like that right now. I want to look at it like, why did this happen to me? But you just saved your sister's life. You just saved your daughter's lives. You just saved your boys, their future kids' lives. And as hard as that is to think about it like that, you did. And you saved your own life, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so unfortunately, because you're having to go through this, it sucks.
Yeah, but if I can
the domino effect of it all.
If I can take it so that they don't have to go through it, that's a win in my book for sure.
Exactly.
So I think that for the listeners to hear, I think that you should share your story, like how you found out and what you had to do, because I know that I had a little bit of struggle with the doctors too. So, well, not doctors. I don't want to say that. But like struggle with the medical system.
Yes.
Too. So I think that it's important for you to share yours too.
Sure. And I kind of thought about, like, how would I share this in, like, a pretty little package that would sound great?
It's not pretty.
And it's not.
Don't share it in a pretty package.
Exactly. So about 8.5 years ago, I had a lumpectomy because I had a fibroadenoma. And it's unrelated to the cancer. But because of that, I have always been just very aware of doing the checks and feeling all the time. And so after I had my son, I breastfed, and, you go to the doctors. He's 2.5, by the way. So about, 2 years ago, I stopped breastfeeding, and I just was paying attention. And early in 2020, I went to just my annual doctor's appointment, and she was just explaining to me that I had lumpy breast tissue and that she could, tell. And because because I had that lumpectomy, that was the second lump I had found back then. So to me, I was like, well, all right, sounds about
Another
right.
lump. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I didn't think much of it. And then on July 4th, I was getting ready to go to like my family's house for 4th of July, and I was getting in the shower, and I went to take off my shirt, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw like a dark spot like right on my right side. And I was like, what was that? Mm-hmm. And so I lift up my arms, and I'm moving my arms around in the mirror, and I see a dimple. And so I was like, what's that? You know? And so, of course, Dr. Google, like you said, if you Google something, it immediately tells you aggressive cancer.
You're going to find what you're looking for. Yeah.
And, well, I mean, it wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
This time.
Right.
But so I spent the whole shower, like, crying, and decided at that moment I was going to go find, like, an urgent care and just to, like, appease them, or what is that word?
Yeah.
Not appease,
just to make you feel better.
Yeah, just to make me feel better. And when I got there, they felt it, and they were like, "Oh no, you're fine. You're too young. You don't have a lot of the characteristics. We'll send you for imaging, but definitely not breast cancer." And I was like, "Oh, phew, thank goodness." Then when I went to make my imaging appointment, they were like, "Oh, we don't take your insurance." So I was like, "Oh, cool." So I went to my primary doctor to get it checked again, and this happened on my son's 2nd birthday. I'm rushing to the doctor's, and she said the same thing. She's like, "Nope, it's oblong, it's bouncy, it moves. There's no way it's breast cancer." And at this time, we were trying for another baby. So I have my 2-year-old son. And so we were like, okay, let's start trying for another baby. And so in this appointment, I was like, okay, well, we're trying for a baby, so I just don't want. And she's like, you have my blessing. Keep trying for a baby. And I was like, all right. And so then, long story short, I couldn't get my imaging done. Insurance issues just kept coming up to where they weren't sending my referrals and all this. I finally decided to just pay out of pocket and get my imaging done. So I like to think I followed my own gut and knew, like,
you just felt like it was off.
Yeah, and before I wanted to get this checked off before I got pregnant. Like, I didn't want to get pregnant and then something come up.
Right.
So anyways, long story short, I go to my imaging appointment, and I explained to them, like, hey, we're trying to get pregnant. Like, if I don't have to have can I have the shield to, like, protect my ovaries or whatever? And they were like, sure. How about we do the ultrasound first? And if we feel like you need the mammogram, then we'll do the mammogram. And I was like, great. When I was in the ultrasound, I explained again to the tech, and she was like, oh, if you have to have the mammogram, it will be all right. It will be fine. And in my head, I was like, ding, like, there's something.
You're telling me that I need a mammogram, and you're trying to be nice about it.
Yes. Which, again, I know the techs can't tell us anything, so
right.
I don't hold anything against her. So I went, I got the mammogram done, and when I left, I just knew. I just had this feeling because they did one on both sides, and I was like, something's not right. They called me at 5 o'clock that night and said, hey, something looks off. We need to send you for a biopsy. And they had called my doctor before I even got to my car. Like, from my mammogram to before I got to my car, they had already called my doctor.
Same, me too.
And I'm like, why didn't you call me then? Just kidding. And so on Monday is when I had my mammogram. And then on Friday, I was able to get into my great breast specialist. And she got me in the very last appointment on a Friday. I am sitting there. She's having me do all the arm motions, doing an ultrasound. And she looks at me and she's like, so it looks suspicious. And I was like, so, what does that mean? She's like, we're going to biopsy because it does look suspicious. And I was like, okay. So while they're numbing me up, she's talking to me and she's just telling me about her 4-year-old daughter. And it just, like, hit me. I was like, oh, my gosh, I have a 2-year-old. Like, and you're basically telling me I have breast cancer without telling me I have breast cancer. And so I was like, oh, my gosh, am I going to see my son turn 4? Like, am I going to get to see him turn 4? And she was like, honey, you're going to get to see him turn 40. And I was like, okay.
I'm like, did you cry harder then?
No, I wiped my tears away and I said, whatever it is, I'll kick its ass. Like, that's what I'm going to do. So that was on a Friday. And then on Tuesday, on my lunch break, they called me and told me that it was breast cancer. And I called and told my husband, and he like got rushed out of work. He went and picked up my son, and I was like, no, I have to stay at work. Like, I can't go home. And my principal's like, no, go home. And I'm like, no, so I can just like cry at home.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much time off of work I'm going to need. I need this half a day. Like, let me stay. And so, long story short, I did all the scans and all the tests and everything, and it was just like yours. It was IDC and very small, but still had traveled a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so because of, so how our stories are different is because you have the BRCA2 gene, they want, you have more susceptibility to other things. And so their first instinct is kill the cancer, like cut it off with chemo. With mine, because I did not have the BRCA gene, I didn't have anything. They literally listed off everything, and they're like, "Oh, you don't have anything." And I was like, so why did I get this? Like, you know what I mean?
Why did this happen?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I truthfully feel like this happened to me so that I could be right here. So I could be here for you, so I can be here and be a mentor for other young women and show them that this doesn't have to be as scary as you think it's going to be. Does it suck? Yes, but it doesn't have to be as scary as you think it is. And to be an advocate for knowing your own body, being aware of your own body. I know you said before this that you didn't do self-checks and that you found yours by chance. Right. I found mine by doing checks, but really it was by chance as well because I saw the dimple before I got in the shower. And so I think now both you and I are going to be those people screaming every first of the month. Yep, yeah. Feel them on the first because it is that important. It is happening younger and younger and younger. And you and I run in the same circle of friends, and it says 1 in 8 will be diagnosed. Like, there's 2 of us sitting right here. Like, I know. So you and I need to be those advocates for other people too. Of like, don't think it won't happen to you. Right. You know what I mean? And you're still in it, so you don't need to do that yet. But anyways, so I chose. So back to my story. Because of the testing on my tumor, we went ahead and did surgery first. So I had a bilateral mastectomy at the end of September.
Can you talk about, because I know there's like choices, which is like they're not really choices, but they're guided choices. But you can do, like, there's options. You could do a lumpectomy, which is when they just cut out the lump and extra tissue around it. There's a single mastectomy, or there's bilateral mastectomy. Yes. So because you don't have the gene, you don't have any reason to do bilateral, what was your reasoning for choosing that?
That's a great question. So when my doctor came to me and she told me, you are 30, we need to be aggressive with this because you are only 30 and we want to save your future life. She said a lumpectomy. Again, these are just my doctor's percentages. Please don't think that they're
like statistics to go by.
Yeah, but yes, exactly. She said if you did a lumpectomy, I would have a 30 or 40% chance of it coming back. If I did a unilateral.
Yeah, unilateral. I call it single. Yeah, which is one side.
A unilateral mastectomy. It pretty much would make it down to like 1%. And for me, now I'm 31, but at the time, aesthetics are still really important to me. I'm young. I don't want to look like I had breast cancer. And so my choice was to do a double mastectomy so that everything could be as aesthetically symmetrical, but also so I don't have to worry about it possibly coming back on the other side because I don't have the gene, because I don't know how I got it or why I got it. I was like, I'm taking all precautions and being as aggressive as possible because if I have to do it to one side, why not do it to the other? Again, for me, for my choices. So and then I decided to do reconstruction because, again, I wanted to look as normal as I could. through this process. And there's some people that are so strong in their convictions and are so brave, and our ball is beautiful. Like, you don't need to have fake boobs and all that stuff, which is great. I 100% agree with whatever you feel is what you should do, and shouldn't let other people make you feel bad in whichever choice you do. Like, you and I are choosing to keep our hair because it makes us feel most normal, but that doesn't mean that everybody
needs to do it.
Yeah. It's whatever you feel, and you should feel powerful in your choices. So I chose to do the mastectomy with reconstruction. So then after my mastectomy, they put in expanders. But because I was smaller before, they couldn't fill anything up after my mastectomy. So I was like flat. And what that means is when you get a mastectomy with expanders, they put in these fake implants that have like a port to them, and you fill them up with saline it just depends on what your doctor decides, every so often, so that your muscle, your tissue, your skin slowly stretches because
slowly
of course
expands, yeah.
Yes, because you have the scars and stuff. And then eventually you get them switched out to whatever implants you choose. And so slowly but surely I got expanded. And through that process, I also did IVF. And
yeah, that's something that
chemo.
I didn't have to do, is
Yes.
the IVF treatment.
Yeah.
So, because I am done having kids.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yes.
So I'm sorry that you had to do that.
You
but
know what? It's really okay, because the way it's funny because we were like, well, let's do IVF. And if there's a chance that there's a healthy girl embryo, we'll put that in and we'll have one of each and be done. And then, like you said, there are a lot of things that are out of our control. And they called me with my embryo results, and they were like, oh, do you want to know the genders? And I was like, yes. And she was like, well, they're all the same gender. Are you sure you still want to know? And I was like, yep. And she's like, you have 6 healthy boys. So we're just going to start a baseball team. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
And honestly, I felt like my recovery from the egg retrieval was harder than the mastectomy recovery, because I think going into the mastectomy, I was like, I already know I'm going to be in a little bit of pain. It's a major surgery. But honestly, it really wasn't that bad to me. Mm-hmm. I feel like I handled it really well. I followed all the orders, and it just really wasn't that bad. But then with the IVF, I got, what is it called? OSS, maybe? It's where your ovaries are overstimulated.
Okay.
And so then your stomach expands, and it's like you feel like you're really pregnant and bloated, like you've had Thanksgiving dinner 24/7.
Oh, man.
And you can't drink water, you have to drink Gatorade and all of this stuff. Yes. So that was worse to me than the mastectomy recovery. So then we did IVF, and then through the expansion period, I also did my chemo, which, to backtrack a little bit and kind of mesh all the things we're talking about right now, when I first had my mastectomy, there was still a really high chance that I wouldn't have to do chemo. They said, if your tumor comes back under a certain score, you won't have to do chemo, and we'll just go on with hormone therapy. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a chance. And which is why I didn't share my journey yet, because I just wasn't sure what my journey was going to be. What did I need from people to know, or what, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And so then they kept pushing off telling me that information, because they just were waiting for test results to come in. And then finally they told me, and it was under the number. And I was like, hallelujah. And
it's
then
the Oncotype, right?
Yes.
So basically for everybody, Oncotype is a test that they take a part of your tumor and they test it to see how rapidly growing these cells are. So it takes a couple weeks, because they have to see, over an extended period of time how fast they're growing.
Yes.
They can't just do it over a day.
Correct.
You have to think about a cancer tumor growing. You can't tell how fast it's growing after one day. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. And so that number came back low, but not low enough. So
Right.
it came lower. It was lower than the number that they had initially told me. And so my husband Matt and I were like, yes, I don't have to do chemo. This is wonderful. And then they were like, well, you're only 31. So even though this is like lower than it's not low enough for us to feel comfortable of saying like no chemo. So then this was one of those moments where I felt what I wanted to feel. I bawled, I cried, I said all the things that I'm sure you have also said of just like, what did I do? Like, I'm a good person. I'm thoughtful. Like, why did I get this, you know? And I try hard, like I told you before, I try really hard not to think like that because, like you said, you'll never find out why.
Yeah.
And it's only upsetting you. So then they told me the type of chemo I had, and they actually told me about cold capping in that appointment.
Wow.
But I'd already heard about cold capping via TikTok. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll keep that in the back of my brain. And then when they said, oh, you're going to have chemo, you should look into cold capping, I was like, oh, I don't know. That sounds like a lot, blah, blah, blah. I'll just get in a really nice wig and it will be fine. Then I talked to our plastic surgeon, and he was like, no, Ashleigh, you need to try it. It's fussy, it's tedious, but it works. Please try it. And I was like, all right. Because it was like another validation of this is going to work for me. And then I hit the ground running of all the research, buying all the things, which is another reason why I was so happy that you wanted to do cold capping, because I had all these things and I was like, what am I going to do with a hairnet? Like,
I know, what am I going to do with a hairnet? What am I going to do with these maxi pads? What am I going to do with this moleskin?
Yes. I'm like, here you go, Krystal.
Yeah.
Now you deal with
that
it.
was so helpful, yeah.
And it was something that I never thought in my life I would ever go through.
Yeah.
It's something I never thought I would have to be a part of this journey. And you and I have this thing in common. So if you don't mind me, I'm going to share.
Yeah.
We had a podcast call last week, and there were just times where Krystal and we were both looking just at our computers, but I almost felt like she was just looking at me, and I was looking at her, and we would just start crying.
Yes, yeah.
And it was one of those things where I was like, everyone can say, like, oh, talk about your journey, share your journey, but you don't fucking know. And I pray no one ever knows what we went through, what we're going through. And it's just one of those moments where you're like, wow, they're talking about us. Like, they want me to talk about my cancer journey. I had cancer. Like, it's one of those bizarre things. And like when parents email me and say like, oh my gosh, I can't believe everything you went through this school year. We're so thankful for you. I'm like, wow, I did go through a lot this school year. And it's like an out of body experience. And what I think you shared that really hit home is that you felt like you could have your guard down with me because I'm going through the same thing or went through the same thing.
All right, for all you listeners out there that have a wish list of some home renovations or handyman projects that you need help with, now is the time to do it. You have to reach out to Nick. Nick is our contractor that we work with at Galinda Group, and he's very dependable. He's willing to help with a project that's small or large, and he'll move quickly. Don't waste any more time and give Nick a call. If you're in need of some home renovations and tired of waiting, you need to reach him at 480-235-8148. You can also check out his work on Facebook or Instagram at The Real Nick Marietta. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, no matter what you're going through, whether it's like a health scare or relationship issues or, being a single parent, I think that you never can really find comfort unless that person, that person's on your level can totally relate. I feel like somebody that doesn't have any health issues, they just can't understand. So like with all of this stuff, it's like, okay, I said I'm not going to drink. And a lot of my, people close to me were like, oh, it's just like you're pregnant again. I'm like, except for I don't get a baby. And every time that there's drinking around me, I'm reminded that I can't drink because I have cancer. So it's very, very different. And, and it's nothing against anybody. I don't expect them to understand, like, how can they? So I think when I talk to you, it's like, you get it. And this sucks.
It's so funny. One time I texted Krystal and I said, doesn't it just make you mad when people post about their coffee? And it has nothing to do with the person and their coffee, but it's one of those things where it's like a constant reminder of like, wow, I wish I could just be worrying about that this barista got my coffee wrong.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
again, nothing against them.
Right.
They just get to, everyone's going through their own battles and going through their own things. But sometimes I remember when I was in the thick of it, I was like, well, it must be nice. Like,
Your only problem today is that your coffee was wrong.
yeah, exactly. And something else that you also brought up that I really liked, or that we've talked about, is kind of like, because we have our hair, people forget that, we're going through hard things. And I no longer am going through those hard things, so I don't want to speak like I still am. But during those times, like, just because we have our hair, or just because we're
We don't look sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you're being a mom and a boss and all of those things, it's still, like, in the back of your mind, and it's hard. It's hard to play the roles of, like, I'm sick, feel bad for me, but please don't feel bad for me. I don't, like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's like one of those, you go back and forth between them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want people to pity me, but I don't want people to discredit me either.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of, my struggles have been recently is that, not that anybody means to do it, but they're discrediting what I'm going through because I look fine. Like, oh my gosh, you look great. You have energy. You have hair. You like, it's like, well, you don't know, when I go to my eyelash appointment, my guy is like trying to figure out how to fill in the gaps that I'm missing because half of my eyelashes are gone, or that I'm like sharpening my eyebrow pencil more than normal because I know I have to color in a little bit more. Not that that's petty, but or that I've had a top knot for the last 3 months of my life, and that's all I'm going to have my hair for the next 3 months.
My hair lived in a side braid, and I was like, I'm really tired of braiding this hair. But then I would step back and say, wow, I am so thankful I have hair to braid. I am so thankful I have hair to be upset over. One of the quotes that I really like that I think pertains to all of this is like, just because I carry it well doesn't mean it isn't heavy. And so the friends that, so, if anyone's looking for advice out there, still check on your friends, even if they are doing well.
Yeah.
Still bring them dinner, still offer to do things for their kids, even if they are doing great, because you don't know when that coffee post will come across and you're like upset,
Yeah. So I think I just want to touch on a couple things because it is hard to stay positive and all of that. So if you are battling, having your same battle. So I know one thing, we talked about the Oncotype Score. So when you got your Oncotype Score, it was very discouraging that you had to do chemo, and I was feeling the same. And the doctor said to me, he goes, listen, this is a good thing. He's like, I know you don't want to hear that you have to do chemo. I know it doesn't sound like it's a good thing. But if the score is too low, that means chemo can't help you.
Yeah.
And then we have to do other avenues to try to cure your cancer.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being like a map that's already printed out.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, that did help me. I was like, okay, you're right. Like, what if chemo wouldn't help? Like, because, you think cancer, you do chemo, you're better. Well, that doesn't work for everybody. So that was one thing that was very, like, enlightening for me. I was like, okay, I need to remember, like, even though this is the hardest thing that I've ever done, and this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, it's not the worst thing that could ever happen.
Agreed.
And I would choose this over many things,
And a silver lining in it all is we do have had a cancer that was very treatable, curable, can be taken care of in a span of time.
Right.
They already, like you said, they already know what to do with it. And I do feel blessed in that sense that it was something that I was just like, okay, 1, 2, 3, and now we're done, kind of.
Yeah. I remember
thing.
my oncologist said to me, he goes, listen, I know you want to look at the other things about, like, different ways to treat it, and can I avoid chemo? He's like, the end game is to, if there's a fire, you get out the emergency exit. He's like, I'm telling you, these are the stairs, you walk out the door. I don't know why you're trying to find a different side exit, to go down a different set of stairs, to put a blanket over your head that's wet, to get out the exit. Like, I'm telling you, just go down the stairs and you will get out fine. And I'm like, okay, fine.
And it's just one of those things where you're like, you're right, but also, dang it.
Right. Okay, fine. I'll listen.
Yeah. But I think what came with chemo is then I think during chemo and during the process of everything, I was like, I'm fighting this. I'm constantly doing this to fight the cancer. And then when I'm done, now it was one of those like, what now kind of thing. And one of the questions that somebody asked me was like, how do you overcome the anxiety of it? And I'm like, I don't. Like, I still do have anxiety dealing with like, what if it comes back? How do I stop it from ever coming back? But then I have to remind myself, that's what my doctors are for. That's why I go to them every month. That's why I get certain medications often to help make it so that this never comes again. I was the most aggressive you could ever have been. Like, I didn't have to do chemo. Like you said, they were kind of like, you should do chemo. And I was like, well, do I have to? And they were like, well, you don't have to, but you should. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing chemo, you know? And that was really hard because it was my choice, but like, it was hard to choose that for myself because no one wants to go through chemo. Like,
I know, and I think that the thing is, it's such a scary word, and everybody's experience is different, but I do know that, like, you know, there's a couple, unfortunately, I have 4 close girls, you included, that have gone through this, and all of them said to me that their biggest struggle and the hardest thing for it, like besides you obviously, was that they didn't have their hair. And their kids saw them with no hair, and they were trying to hide it from their kids, and then they had to tell their kids, and then their kids were asking them if they were going to die, and you know, and I was like, okay, I need to make sure that I have my hair because I can't, I wouldn't be able to emotionally handle that. So I think that's one thing that changed for me, that I was like, okay, I'm gonna make my hair work. I'm gonna try everything that I can. Yeah, I know.
You've done great.
Thank you. But okay, so I think that it's really hard to like say. I know this is going to sound weird, but I even though I'm only halfway through this, there's a lot of things that I'm very, very thankful for.
Oh no.
I know. Oh, I'm sorry. But you're not in the thick of it. You're like you're after the thick of it, but I would say you're probably still in the thick of it because I don't
it's
think
like
it ever does it thin out? I don't know. But can you just like for everybody, just so it's a little bit positive, can you give me like 3 things that you like learned that for other people that are going through it, things to maybe look forward to, or things that you like find that this was good for you for?
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, but there really is those things.
And you know what? Even if we have said anything negative, which we haven't said anything negative, but maybe not quite as like peppy, I think that's okay too, because sometimes you can't relate to somebody who's just like 100% of the time positive and sparkly, and then you're
it's
like,
not
well,
real.
Yes.
It's not real.
And so I feel like you and I are just trying to give everybody like a realistic of like, this sucks, but hey, you know what? We have happy cancer. We got this. Like, it will be fine. Lots of things to look forward to, but you know what? It's so funny. I have a funny story. When I was going in for my implant exchange,
when they take out the expanders and then put in your implant.
Yes.
Okay.
My anesthesiologist was like hooking me all up to all the good stuff, and he was like, oh, don't you just miss chemo? And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And everyone in the room was like, what? No, she doesn't miss chemo, you know? Right. And what he meant by that was everyone rallies around you. Everyone really cares about you. Everyone, like, I have had such an outpour of love through the whole process. I cannot even begin to thank, like, all the people in my life that really stepped up. Like, I didn't have to worry about things at work. I didn't have to worry about things in my family. Like, everyone was, because Mace is my son. He's still in a crib. People came over nightly to help me put him to bed because I couldn't lift him. And the silver linings that I found in that is that I really got to see my family in a different light, as I'm always the helper. I'm the one that does the things. I'm the one that brings the dinner. I'm the one that, helps.
You're the giver.
Yes. And so in this experience, other people got to give back to me.
And you had to learn to receive.
Yes. And I don't know if I learned it correctly still, but as I like sit back, as I'm now almost 4 months from my journey, I really sat back and realized, like, wow, I'm so lucky to have the people that were in my life. So anyways, to answer your question, some things that are really positive. Well, I don't have to go to weekly doctor's appointments, so that's wonderful. But also, I feel like I have this new outlook on life. I feel like, and excuse my French, I feel like I have, like, a lot less fucks. Like, I've realized that, you know what, the people that want to be in my life will be in my life, and I don't need to keep chasing people that don't want to be in it. And I have found some really solid friendships and love in my life through this experience, because I've just had this new, like, awakening of life is so short, but also I want to make it as long as possible too. So I, like, have flight anxiety, but I'm like, nope, going on all the trips that I can go on because I only have one life. Like, this just really, it really gave you that, like, that eye-opening experience of, like, I really don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, and I want to experience everything I can and tell all the people that I love them, you know?
Yeah, I think that one thing for me is, like, you know, it's kind of when you're in the everyday turn and burn and the, you know, the daily, you're in the daily mix, right?
Yes.
So I know for us, like, we were like, this was a very jolting experience. So we're like, okay, this is where, you know, I was supposed to be debilitated. So I'm like, okay, this is where I need help. We needed to get more people at work and all this stuff. And then, like, come to find out it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But now, like, we're growing at work. And I feel like it's kind of helped me jump into the next chapter of my life to where I agree. It's like zero fucks. Like, okay, that's not that bad. Like, I feel like I don't have the, you know, it's not daily, but a lot of the times it's like, okay, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I can take more. I can do more. Like, if I did chemo, I feel like I can do anything.
Yes, that's exactly how I feel. That is exactly how I feel. And I feel, so right after I finished treatment, you know, I was still going to doctor's appointments, and I was asking them every time, like, when does, like, the anxiety go away? When do I stop thinking about it constantly? And I reached out to friends and their spouses that have had it before, and they were like, I promise, as each day passes, you think about it less and less. And that is 100% true. I'm only 4 months out from it, and I don't feel like I think about it like I did when I was first done. Because when you're first done with chemo, you're like, wow, I just did all of this, and, like, you were in the battle, so you knew you were doing something to help. And then after it was all of a sudden like, okay, now what? Like, what now? And so each day that has passed, I have become stronger in knowing that the things that I'm doing in my life are combating it ever reoccurring. And that was, like, another thing that came up, is like, how do you you know, go forward in life, and, like, what are the things that you're doing? So for you had the BRCA gene, so you have something to blame it on, I guess, for lack of better words. I did not. And
I would say I did. I was very conflicted. I was super upset that it came back positive, because I was worried about my sister and my brother and my dad and my brothers and my dad, my kids, you know. But then at the same time, it was like, okay, I'm not going to blame myself anymore. This is not my fault. And not that it is your fault, but that's, you know, it's, and like, what did I do to cause it, you know?
It's like, because I didn't have a reason to pinpoint it, I almost felt like I needed to turn my world upside down and prevent. And that's not always necessarily the healthiest mindset, because I live somewhere in the middle of, I want to do everything I can to elongate my life and do what I need to do, but I also want to keep in the back of my mind that tomorrow is not promised. So how can I live somewhere in the middle? Like, how can I eat pretty plant-based, but then if I still want pokey or something like that, like, I still can, because that's what I want in that moment. So it's been a different experience being on the other side of it, but obviously I'm thankful and appreciative of it.
Yeah, I think that it's part, my biggest thing was I wanted this to only be part of my story and not my story. Like so I wanted, but I do think that helping, or that what's helped me a lot has been sharing it, because I couldn't imagine not talking to anybody about it or not sharing it, because I received so much love from like people I haven't seen like in a very long time, or people that I've never even talked to before. And I think that sharing has really, really helped me cope, honestly. So I was going to ask, like, do you think that sharing it helped you, or do you kind of wish you wouldn't have?
So, you know what is, I was also thinking about this, is you shared almost immediately, like within a few weeks of like finding out. And I didn't share until like November. So I had been through my mastectomy, I'd been through IVF, and when they told me that I was gonna have to have chemo, I was kind of like, okay, now it's the time to share. And the only reason I didn't share, which is something we've already talked about, is that I was worried everyone was gonna look at me different. I was worried everyone was gonna think, poor Ashleigh, poor sick girl, like she's so sick. I was really worried that if I shared it, I was just gonna get a lot of pity, and that people were just gonna be like, poor thing. But that's a natural reaction too. Like it's natural to like feel bad for someone, especially when they're your friend, you know. And it was, so I think a lot of people were shocked by it, because I had already been through like 2 major things before I shared it. And if I could go back, I would share it a lot sooner, because just like you said, I feel like a lot of people almost were like, what? Why didn't you like, we could have helped you with that. Like, we would have come over and done A, B, and C. And I think it was more, I was nervous people were just going to, like, scroll on by and, like, not care as much as they did. And then when you share it, it's almost like you can, like, breathe. And then it's out there. And people just, like, know, you know?
Yeah, I think that, you know, when you find out, it's like it's a burden that you're carrying, and every person that you talk to, you're like, are they looking at me like they know? Am I supposed to tell them that I'm sick? But I feel fine. I don't feel like I'm sick, you know? But I do think that sharing it is, you know, if you are able to do it, if you're brave enough to do it, I think that's so important, because I can tell you, like, I remember the picture that you posted, and it was literally burned in the back of my mind, because I just had my mammogram in June, and they told me it was a fibroid, and it was growing. And in November, the first week of November was my second appointment. They're like, okay, you need to go again because it is growing. And you shared sometime in November.
Yeah, I did.
And it was burning in the back of my brain. I'm like, or my mind. I was just like, I need to go get my second mammogram. I need to go do it. And there was like all the holidays and everything. And so I was like, first week of January, like, I'm getting it done so I can move on, you know. And honestly, I am glad I waited, but I did not forget that picture. And so I think that's so important. Like you should be so proud of yourself for sharing that, because that's also what made me, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it too, because, you know, the more people see it, the more they're going to take their own self-care, and then hopefully we see it less, you know?
And that's what I was just going to say. With sharing it, I got so many messages telling me, like, oh my gosh, I have never done one before. Can you share how to? I would love to, like, know how. And so I would share how. And so many people after me were like, oh my gosh, I have a lump and I went and got it checked out because of you. I can't tell you how many times I cried over people telling me they went to the doctor because of me.
I know.
Like, what?
Know. Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that none of those turned into anything. But had it just, like, I'm just so thankful that people chose to take my journey and turn it into themselves and think, okay, I need to go and get this checked out. And not because I want to scare people. And that's what I've said from the beginning. Me sharing my story does not mean it's going to happen to you or you or you or you. It's for you to be aware that this could happen to you. And early detection is key. Finding it. Had I found it back in January when I first thought I felt something, my story might have been so different, but I don't look at it like that. I'm very thankful for the road that I traveled, and I am just I'm thankful I shared my journey, and I'm thankful that you're sharing yours with so many people.
Adulting is hard. You know what shouldn't be hard? Buying a house. Robert Coomer is a stand-up guy that does what he says he's going to do. He's helped us and our friends buy and refinance houses for the past 15 years or so. Every time we know we're getting the best service possible and the person on the other end of that phone call has a smile on their face. And that leaves a smile on ours. So call Robert Coomer. He does all the heavy lifting for you so you can worry about the more important things. Like what kind of wine pairs well with leftover pizza? Seriously, give him and his team a call at 702-850-2000. You won't regret it.
All right, guys, I know you've all heard of Moon Valley Nurseries. Well, now is the best time to plant everything, and Moon Valley Nurseries has everything to plant. Right now, you can get 50% off plus free planting. Moon Valley Nurseries is the largest box tree grower in America, and they've brought in millions of dollars of inventory just for this event. From their farms to your yard, nobody does it better. So stop in now for the biggest and best selection. For the best trees on earth, go straight to the moon. Head to moonvalleynurseries.com to learn more. Thank you for sharing with everyone your surgery and the choices that you had to make. So I remember after we went to UCLA, Josh and I, this is before we had all of our answers. I remember thinking, this is so messed up. I don't know anything about this, and I'm supposed to be making these choices for myself that, I just want somebody to tell me what I'm supposed to do. And, it was so fresh that we just need to realize we need to wait for our answers from all the tests to know what we're supposed to do. So for me, they did say I could do the single or unilateral. Unilateral is the medical term. So that means one boob and mastectomy or two. And when I found out about the BRCA gene, it was strongly recommended that I do the bilateral mastectomy, which is double, both boobs. And honestly, for me, Josh and I had talked about it. Lumpectomy scared me because I felt like, there's so much more chance of it coming back. And then, one boob would be a different size, which, people have that. But if I'm having, surgery, I might as well not have it be a different size. And then the single, it's a little bit of a safer option, but the bilateral was the best option for me, least amount chance of it coming back. And that's, that's what I want. I want the least amount of chance of reoccurrence. So for me, after I'm done with my chemo, I think I have to wait 2 months till I'm going to be healthy enough.
Yes,
I feel healthy enough.
I was going to say you are healthy.
They
but
tell me I'm not.
It gives your body enough time to recover from fighting the battle.
Right. And then I will have the double mastectomy. And I will also have the expanders put in because, blood flow and all that medical jar that no one wants to hear. And then however much time I'll have my implants put in. And then they said 7 to 10 years, I'll have to do a hysterectomy as well just because of the gene. So thank God I'm done having kids. But, so those are the surgery things that I'm going to have to do.
Are you nervous for the mastectomy?
Honestly, I feel okay about it because I've had a boob job before, so I'm not too nervous about it. Yeah. But I have found that every time that I've put myself through so much stress and anxiety, being nervous and anticipating all these bad things, it hasn't turned out as bad.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, I want it to, oh my gosh, it's going to be so bad because I want to train my mind so it's not as bad as I think it's going to be instead of thinking, oh, it's not going to be bad, and then it is,
Yes, and I think that was one thing that happened to me is that I really put it out there to people that I knew, if you don't have a positive story, please. Right now, my heart is not open to negative circumstances or negative stories because right now I need positive, I need light.
I'm so glad you said that, actually. Yes, keep going. I'm going to touch on that when you're done.
And so, people were telling me their stories through their mastectomies, and they were telling me their horror stories, and I was like, thank you, but no thanks.
Yeah.
And then... But like you just said, it almost helped me because then when I got up the next day and I was like, this isn't so bad. It's okay. I mean, obviously I couldn't pull up my pants and I didn't have as much mobility. But the pain and all of that really wasn't as bad as I anticipated. And it wasn't that bad. So like, I don't know.
I think the part that why surgery doesn't scare me as much is because I mean, I've had 4 C-sections, but pain doesn't really scare me. As weird as that sounds. Like, I don't feel like, there's nothing that's like really that bad. Like, I feel like I'm okay with that. It's the part, I don't want to feel sick. I don't want to feel tired. I don't want to feel like I'm restricted to function based on like my health state. Like pain, I feel like I can handle, manage, and work around and figure it out.
Yes.
And pain doesn't really bother me as much as like the other side of it.
Yeah.
But so I know it's kind of off base, but to touch on the like, don't tell me your horror stories. That was one of my biggest struggles is when I did find out, people are like, oh, it's okay. You know, like, I know this person that died from it, but you'll be fine. It's like, that doesn't make me feel better.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear the horror stories. I want to hear the stories of the people that thrived. I want to hear about the, like, how they dealt with it and made it better and an easier journey.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want to hear about. I don't want to hear about, oh, if you lose your hair, maybe it'll come back curly. First of all, I don't want curly hair, but that doesn't make me feel better. Like,
Yes.
So I think that a lot of what helped me stay in the positive is anytime I was like, you know, thank you, but you know, I don't really want to talk about that. I had to like kind of draw my line in the sand of what stories I wanted to hear and which ones I didn't.
Well, you have to be open to receive.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to come to me and say, like, please tell me the worst of it, you're ready to hear that.
Yeah.
It's not something that's, like, blindsiding you than someone just saying, like, oh, yeah, I could not even stand in the shower without feeling like passing out. And I'm like, what? Like, what? And so I have the chair that sits in the shower and all of this. So they were just, like, trying to prepare me. They were only doing it out of, like, sweetness. But in my head, I was like, what? I'm not going to be able to stand in the shower? I'm going to feel like I'm going to pass out? No, that's not at all what happened, you know?
Right.
And I think a lot of times people say things because they want to be relatable.
Yeah, and they want to help.
They want to help. They want to share these things with you, like, hey, my mom went through this, like, this is what happened. And sometimes, like you said, you have to draw the line of, like, today I'm tapped out of talking about it. I remember that very vividly, being like, today, this is enough for me today. Let's pick it up tomorrow. And that's the kind of my advice to some people, too, that might be going through it or starting the process of it. Like, know your boundaries. And don't feel bad if somebody's talking to you or they're asking you questions and you don't have room for it today. Today I cannot. I've already cried 10 times, so today I cannot.
I feel like most of the time I'm like, yes, let's talk about it. Let's get it out of the way, because I know you're sitting there waiting to ask me questions and you think it's awkward to bring it up, and it's like, it's not. Like, I know that you are, so just, like, bring it up. So, one more thing before we, like, wrap up, because I've been struggling with this recently, and I haven't, like, I talked to Josh a little bit about it, but he's very kind and he will listen, but he doesn't understand and or can't really tell me what to do, which I don't know what to do. I
hope I know what to do.
Yeah, I'm struggling with every time I go somewhere and I'm like meeting people or I'm like hanging out with my friends, I feel very heavy the second I leave, because I feel like the second I leave the room, everybody's talking about how I'm that girl or their friend that has cancer. And I feel like I'm showing up differently because I want to be like, I know they're going to talk about me when I leave. So I want to be like good and happy. And like, I don't feel like I can really like, I feel like I'm amping it up more just because I know they're going to be saying that when I leave the room. And it's
almost
lately,
like you want to.
It's been really hard.
Yeah. And it's almost like you want to say all the things so that they can't talk about you.
Yeah, it's like I want to just like bring up like, hey, I'm that person, because I don't want to feel like, what are they saying when I leave? Like, did I show up right when I don't know why I'm worrying about that, but I am.
But because it again comes back to just because I carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy kind of feeling, where you're like, I know I'm peppy. Yeah, I'm going through breast cancer. It's fine. Like, you want to show this like pride of like, I'm doing great, but like, you know the moment, like you just said, the moment you walk away, they're going to be like, what? She has breast cancer? She's so young. She's so pretty. Like, blah, blah, blah. But something that like I said, I've had this new awakening of just, like, a lot less fucks. And I feel like that's just...
That's part of
it. I honestly don't cuss this much, I promise.
I brought it out in you. I'm sorry.
You did. I feel like I've had to remember, like, no one is saying or talking about anything negatively. They're not talking about it because they think ill of you. It's because they are flabbergasted, just like you were, just like I was. And they can't believe that you're going through this so young. They can't believe how well you're handling. They can't believe how strong you are, because when you think of breast cancer and you think of chemo, you think of the stories. You think of sickly, skinny. You think of gray. You think of really sick. And you and I have both been testaments that that's not true. And that if you do have to go through chemo, it's going to be okay. And you will survive and you will get through this. But like when you leave the group, you have to leave the group. Like you just, and I know you said you had a problem with the same with when you feel your feels to like move through them, it's the same thing. You can't worry about what they're going to think about you. You can't worry about what you're going to say because in 13 very short weeks, you're going to ring that bell and you're going to say, I fucking did it. And it's not going to matter what those people at a party said. It's not going to matter what they spoke about you when you left, because you're going to be the one reigning on top, like, I did it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and I guess it's better if it's acknowledged instead of not. I don't know.
But sometimes you just want to be Krystal.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to be the one going through chemo. And that's okay, too, to not bring it up, to not tell people. Because, yes, it's nice to share, but also that's just a part of your life right now.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be everything. And I think that's okay. Like, I don't think you need to feel guilty, like, if you left a birthday party and you didn't bring it up or you didn't introduce yourself, like, hi, I'm Krystal, I have breast cancer. Like, it's okay. It's okay to just be, hi, I'm Krystal, Beckham's mom, and that's it. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all your other 3 kids, but you know what I mean? I was saying, like, a birthday party.
You know, I will say one thing, and this may sound bad, and I don't really care if it does. When I call it pulling the C card. So, like, I feel like, you know, if I'm going to make the best of it, I'm going to use it to my advantage when I need. So, like, one of the kids' teachers was giving someone that was picking the kids up for me because I was having treatment, was giving them a hard time and saying, no, you can't take the kid, blah, blah, blah. Just do the teachers just, I get it. But anyways, I had to pull my C card. I'm like, listen, Linda, this is what I'm doing.
Yes.
And I don't like to do it, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use it when I can. So
I feel like that's okay too. Like, it's okay. Like, you're going through 80 different things over here to use it one time. You get to choose.
Oh, if I get pulled over, I'm going to use it. I'm going to use it as long as my kids aren't in the car. Because they can't know.
Officer, can you read my phone?
Yeah, right.
I typed
like,
something to you. Well, it's really funny you say that because, like I said, I found out on my lunch break, and my students never knew. I went on a month-long leave after my mastectomy, and I just told my parents, not my physical parents, but my students' parents, that I was just going on a medical leave. And then right before I announced it, I guess, on social media, I emailed all my parents and let them know. Because I know once one person saw it on social media, like the grapevine of everyone figuring it out. And I wanted to be in control of my story, which is another reason why I'm proud of you for sharing earlier on. Because you got to be in control of your story and how it was, like, told.
Shared, yeah.
So in that process, my kids, my students, they were my saving grace because I have my son, and he made me feel normal because I have to be mom. I can't be sick. I have to be mom. But my students were the same way. I went to work every day, thankfully, virtually, so that was nice during my chemo. And they didn't notice a skip or a beat of anything. They were just like, oh, we're so happy to see you. We missed you, blah, blah, blah. But using the C card, as you said, the Golden Knights were doing like a reading week thing. And I was like, well, I haven't used the card yet. So I was like, hi. And it was like, how come your students deserve this? And I was like, well, let me start the list of like all the things that I've been through and all of the things that they've had to endure besides all the COVID related things. their teacher had breast cancer and they had no idea and blah, blah, blah. And then, what do you know? We had Alex Tuck reading to my class.
Oh my gosh, he's my neighbor.
So I'll be coming over.
I'm so excited. Well, he doesn't know I'm his neighbor. I just know he's my neighbor.
He's my neighbor. I'm not his, but
yeah,
he's
right.
mine.
You know, he just doesn't know.
I am on the list, so now he's my neighbor too.
Yeah, right? That's true. That's true.
So through this all, I feel like I just tried my best to feel my feels, move through them, but stay as positive as I can because no one's going to help. I mean,
yeah, no one can do it for you. You have to do it for yourself.
Exactly.
All right. How do you want to wrap it up?
So don't cry.
Okay.
And I'll try not to cry too.
Okay.
So like I said, I say affirmations with my students every day, and it's, you're going to say them after me.
Okay.
And so anybody out there that's fighting any sort of battle, whether it's emotional, physical, sickness, or, mental health, all those things, like, you need to hear these things and you need to say them too. So you are strong.
You are strong.
You are brave.
You are brave.
You are worthy.
You are worthy.
And you are so loved.
You are so loved.
So never give up.
Never give up.
Don't mind me just starting to cry.
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you broadcasting your deepest, darkest secrets.
I'm sorry
with our audience.
if I cuss too much or if I talk too
you're
much.
Good. I'm just glad we both didn't cry.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
Yeah, and I just want to say my favorite part is when you said I had breast cancer, because that means you're past it.
Me
and
too.
I'm very, very proud of you, and thank you for being so inspiring for me and helping me with my journey.
You said we weren't going to cry, and now I'm crying.
I know. Thank you for listening, and I hope you could get some tidbits, and if not, that's okay too.
Feel them on the first.
Yep.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed the show, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. You can also connect with us on social media or at galindogrouprealestate.com.
Until next time, thanks again for listening.